So today we are going to talk GoPro and specifically time-lapse using your GoPro. I'm going to be using the GoPro Hero 9, but you can use any GoPro and that will apply to whatever GoPro you're using. If you're wondering what's this circular adapter I have on my GoPro, this should be a hint to what I'm going to be using today, but follow me and let's get into it. Okay, so why would we need a time-lapse in our videos? Well, it can be used for quite a few reasons. One is to maybe show that some time has passed, and another one is to transition from one location to the next. So let's go find a cool spot to shoot a time-lapse, and then we can get into this. Right, so the best place to have your time-lapse is to be somewhere where there's a lot of movement, whether it's people or traffic. Anything that moves is going to make your time-lapse so much better. So I got my GoPro set up here. So I'm using ND filters to create some motion blur. Circular adapter that you guys saw on my lens is just so that I can use my ND filters that I actually use with my Sony ZV-1. So it is an adapter that has a 52mm thread, and that allows me to screw on one of my 54mm ND filters that I use on my Sony ZV-1. And I have a couple of them. I have an ND6, an ND8, an ND64, and then I have an ND1000. So if you guys are interested in buying some of these ND filters, I will put a link in the description. So GoPro basically offers two time-lapse modes. One is time-lapse, just your normal daytime time-lapse mode, and then one is the time warp mode. In this video, I am mainly going to focus on the time-lapse mode and specifically the night-lapse feature within the time-lapse mode. So the reason why I am using the night-lapse mode is because you have a lot more control over your shutter speed. And what I'm ultimately doing is I'm going to install the ND1000, which basically tricks the GoPro into thinking it's nighttime, and then that will decrease my shutter speed and keep that shutter open for a longer period of time to let in enough light into the sensor. I will do one time lapse with no ND, just to give you guys an idea of what it will look like if you just have the GoPro set up in auto shutter. I have my intervals set at 4 seconds, and then see if you guys can guess which ones have the ND and which one doesn't have the ND. After looking at all of those time lapses, which one did you prefer? Did you prefer A or did you prefer B? So there's going to be one distinct difference between these two examples. One of them will show some movement. Anything that is moving through your frame will have this blurry, milky look to it. And I'm not saying this is the best way to film your time lapses, but for me in this example, I'm just demonstrating how a ND1000 can slow down your shutter speed to give you that ghosting effect of everything that is moving through your frame. And the funny thing is, I got a comment the other day on one of my drone videos, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it went something like, "Your video sucks. What is wrong with you guys? You always want to use ND filters. We all know that makes your footage look crap. It's like dunking your footage in a bucket of mud. Stop it." And yeah, sometimes that happens. You know, it does give your image a softer look, and it does create motion blur. So a lot of the times you don't want motion blur in any of your footage. If I go surfing, I want to just capture every single drop of water in focus and crystal clear. But with something like a time lapse, everything that is not moving, I want it to be crystal clear and in focus. But everything that's moving through my frame, I want to have this kind of milky motion, dreamy look, just to show that it's moving really fast. So it all depends what you want to show your viewer and what you want them to feel when they're watching your video. So let's jump in quickly. I'm going to show the one difference between those two examples. I need to have a bit of water first. So this is the first one. If I pause right here where the ships are, for example, this here. So we can clearly see this ship at the bottom is a little bit more milky. So in this clip, I have the ND Filter 1000 on the lens, and this reduced my shutter speed so that it creates motion blur in my image. So if we move on to the next time lapse, if I now grab a freeze frame for this one, we can see that everything is in focus. All the ships have very little or no motion blur. Let's go to the next example. This one here, it's going to be very obvious. We can see in this freeze frame here that we have the ships out of focus and the buildings, the handrail, everything else is in focus. So once again, we can see how these ND filters can open up the possibilities to adjust and manipulate our footage to what we want it to look like. Okay, let's go to the next one. Same location. I've just removed the ND filter. Everything is in focus. Both these two vessels are in focus. The buildings are in focus, because ultimately a time lapse is just a sequence of photos that is then played back at 24, 25, 30 frames per second, depending on your frame rate. So if you have 24 photos per second and subjects are moving through that frame, if you have a very slow shutter speed, those subjects will be blurry or milky and show the motion, where if you have a really fast shutter speed, then everything will just be captured in that moment. If you guys do want to see some more ND filter videos, you guys can click the one up here. If you want to see more GoPro videos, click up here. And if you like drones, just have a look in the playlist. I will link some videos in the description. Thanks for watching. Shandies. Downtown.